Well, folks, it seems the invincible Israeli army isn't so invincible after all. The recent events have sent shockwaves through the military establishment and the public alike. The 401st Armored Division, once the pride of the Israeli Defense Forces, has suffered a significant blow that has left many questioning the future of Israel's military strategy. Recent events in Beit Hanoun have blown a hole in the carefully crafted narrative of Israeli military dominance. The destruction in the area is not just physical but also symbolic, representing a crack in the armor of what was once considered an impenetrable force. Remember the 401st Armored Division? Yeah, the one touted as Israel's fist of steel? Well, that fist just got a serious knuckle sandwich. The division, known for its advanced Merkava tanks and elite soldiers, found itself outmaneuvered and outgunned in a conflict that has exposed its vulnerabilities. The details are still emerging, but one thing is clear: the 401st wasn't ready for what hit them. Reports suggest that the division was caught off guard by a well-coordinated and highly strategic assault, leading to significant losses in both personnel and equipment. This wasn't some ragtag group of insurgents. This was a coordinated strategic assault that exposed the vulnerabilities of Israel's much-vaunted military machine. The attackers used sophisticated tactics and weaponry, challenging the Israeli forces in ways they hadn't anticipated. We've all seen the images: smoldering hulks of Merkava tanks, once symbols of Israeli might, now reduced to twisted metal. These images have been broadcast around the world, serving as a stark reminder of the changing dynamics of modern warfare. It's a stark reminder that even the most advanced weaponry can't guarantee victory. The reliance on technology and firepower alone is proving to be a flawed strategy in the face of determined and resourceful adversaries. And let's not forget the human cost. Israeli casualties are mounting, and the public is starting to ask some tough questions. Families are grieving, and the nation is grappling with the reality of its losses. Questions that the Netanyahu government seems reluctant to answer. The leadership is under increasing pressure to explain how this could happen and what steps will be taken to prevent such a disaster in the future. The fall of the 401st has become a pivotal moment, forcing a re-evaluation of military policies and strategies. For decades, Israel has invested heavily in armored warfare, believing it to be the key to victory in any conflict. The sight of Israeli tanks rolling through the desert has long been a symbol of the nation's military prowess and technological advancement. These armored behemoths, with their thick steel plating and powerful cannons, were thought to be nearly unstoppable on the battlefield. The Merkava tank in particular has been held up as a shining example of Israeli military ingenuity. Designed with an emphasis on crew protection and battlefield versatility, the Merkava has been a cornerstone of Israel's defense strategy. Its advanced armor and weaponry have made it a formidable opponent in conventional warfare. But recent events in Beit Hanoun have exposed a fundamental flaw in this thinking. Tanks, no matter how advanced, are not invincible. The urban landscape, with its narrow streets and hidden dangers, has proven to be a treacherous environment for these massive machines. The sight of burning tanks and wreckage strewn across the streets is a stark reminder of their vulnerability. The Palestinian resistance, armed with a combination of ingenuity and sheer determination, has demonstrated that even the most heavily armored vehicles can be defeated. Using a mix of homemade weapons and smuggled arms, they have managed to turn the tide against a technologically superior foe. Their tactics are a testament to the power of unconventional warfare. We're talking about anti-tank missiles, expertly placed IEDs, and a variety of other improvised explosive devices. These weapons, while not as sophisticated as the tanks they target, have proven to be devastatingly effective. The element of surprise and the ability to strike from hidden positions have given the resistance a significant advantage, and good old-fashioned guerrilla tactics. Ambushes, hit-and-run attacks, and the use of the urban environment to their advantage have allowed these fighters to inflict heavy losses on Israeli forces. The adaptability and resourcefulness of the resistance have made them a formidable adversary. The result? Israel's once-feared tank divisions are now facing an enemy that can bleed them dry, both in terms of manpower and morale. The psychological impact of seeing their invincible tanks reduced to smoldering wrecks cannot be underestimated. It has shaken the confidence of the soldiers and the nation as a whole. And let's be clear, these aren't just our words. Even Israeli military analysts are starting to question the viability of relying so heavily on armored warfare in a conflict where the enemy is highly mobile and increasingly well-equipped. The changing nature of warfare demands a reassessment of strategies, and a recognition that technological superiority alone is not enough to guarantee victory. So what happens when your big expensive toys aren't getting the job done? When the traditional methods of warfare, the ones that have been relied upon for decades, suddenly seem outdated and ineffective? Well, if you're the Israeli military, you adapt. You innovate. You look for new ways to achieve your objectives, even if it means stepping into uncharted territory. Or at least you try to. Reports from the region suggest that the IDF is already shifting its tactics, moving away from large-scale armored assaults and towards more targeted operations. This shift is not just a minor adjustment, it's a fundamental change in how they approach warfare. Think drone strikes, special forces raids, and increased reliance on intelligence gathering. These are the tools of modern warfare, designed to be more precise and effective in a complex and ever-changing battlefield. But here's the thing. These tactics are not without their own set of problems. Each new method comes with its own unique challenges and risks. Drone strikes, while often effective, are notoriously imprecise and carry a high risk of civilian casualties. The collateral damage can be significant, leading to unintended consequences and fueling further conflict. Special forces raids, while potentially devastating, are also inherently risky and can easily backfire. The element of surprise can be lost, and the missions can turn into prolonged engagements, putting soldiers' lives at risk. And as for intelligence gathering, well, let's just say that the IDF doesn't exactly have a stellar track record when it comes to distinguishing between combatants and civilians. Misidentifications can lead to tragic mistakes, eroding trust and making future operations even more difficult. The bottom line is this. The Israeli military is facing a dilemma. They are caught between the old ways that no longer work and the new ways that are fraught with their own set of risks and challenges. The old ways of doing things are no longer working, but the new ways are fraught with their own set of risks and challenges. It's a complex and evolving situation, one that requires constant adaptation and a willingness to learn from both successes and failures. The battlefield is changing, and so must the strategies employed by those who fight on it. Let's talk about money, shall we? Because waging war, even a supposedly surgical one, is an expensive business, and right now Israel is hemorrhaging cash. The cost of deploying troops, operating drones, and, actually replacing all those blown-up tanks is adding up fast. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even gotten to the cleanup yet. Rebuilding destroyed infrastructure, providing medical care to the wounded, and dealing with the long-term economic fallout of the conflict. All of that costs money, and who's footing the bill? Well, you guessed it. The Israeli taxpayer. So while the Israeli government talks tough about eradicating the enemy, they're doing it on your dime, folks. And something tells me that the bill for this little adventure is going to be a whopper. Section 5. Uncle Sam's Boomerang, the irony of repurposed weaponry. Now for a little dose of irony, because let's face it, we all need a good chuckle these days. Remember all that military aid that the United States shovels at Israel every year? Billions and billions of dollars worth of cutting-edge weaponry? Well, it turns out that some of that weaponry is being used against Israel as we speak. That's right, folks. The Palestinian resistance has become quite adept at repurposing American-made weapons, turning them against their former owners. We're talking about everything from rifles and grenades to, get this, anti-tank missiles. It seems that those made in the USA stickers don't carry the same weight they used to. Section 6. David versus Goliath, the evolution of Palestinian resistance. Let's be clear, this isn't your grandfather's Palestinian resistance. Gone are the days of poorly armed insurgents launching sporadic attacks. The Palestinian resistance has evolved, and they've evolved fast. We're talking about a sophisticated network of fighters, armed with increasingly advanced weaponry and a deep understanding of the battlefield. They've studied the IDF's tactics, exploited their weaknesses, and developed countermeasures that have taken the Israeli military by surprise. This is a David versus Goliath story for the 21st century, and for once it seems like David might just have the upper hand. Section 7. A House Divided, the Two-Front Challenge. As if things weren't bad enough for Israel, they're also facing a growing threat from within. Tensions in the West Bank are reaching boiling point, fueled by continued settlement expansion, settler violence, and the ever-present weight of the occupation. It's a powder keg waiting to explode, and when it does, it has the potential to make the situation in Gaza look like a picnic. So, Israel finds itself caught between a rock and a hard place. They're facing a determined enemy in Gaza and a simmering rebellion in the West Bank. Section 8. The Price of Occupation, a Crumbling Narrative. For decades, Israel has justified its actions in the occupied territories with the same tired arguments: security, self-defense, the ever-present threat of terrorism. But recent events have exposed the hollowness of these claims. The occupation itself is the root cause of the violence. It's a self-perpetuating cycle of oppression and resistance, and no amount of military force can break it. The Israeli public, once largely supportive of the government's hardline stance, is starting to wake up to this reality. They're seeing the images of Palestinian suffering, hearing the stories of Israeli soldiers disillusioned with the endless cycle of violence, and they're starting to ask some tough questions of their own. Section 9. The Long Game. What does the future hold? So, where do we go from here? Honestly, folks, I haven't got a clue. The situation is too volatile, the stakes too high. One thing is for certain: the status quo is unsustainable. Something has to give. The question is, will it be Israel's iron grip on the occupied territories or their carefully constructed narrative of military invincibility? Only time will tell.